Hello all. Before we begin the video, let's discuss CloudFoundation. CloudFoundation is the premier online training platform to help individuals and organizations gain knowledge and skills in the ever-growing cloud computing industry.
Now this is where you're going to use post-sourcing. Because in this case, what happens first? First thing is, both of these fields will be a list type value. Mostly okay. So this is a list by record where you have list of customers. This is also a list by record where you have list of subsidiaries, right? As soon as you select the customer as XYZ, your subsidiary should be populated as subsidiary 1. As soon as you select the customer ABC, your subsidiary will be populated as subsidiary 2. This is where you're going to use post-sourcing function. In this case that's what again, when we go with the example, you will understand. But I know with the definition you will find it as similar. But this is again, first thing, very clear, that it will only be used when you have list type values and now you're sourcing it. You're not waiting for the field value to change. You're just sourcing value based on one field value. As soon as, let's say, if I try to create a record, I put the customer as ABC. At the same time, as soon as you select the customer as ABC, your subsidiary field value will be sourced. You're sourcing the field value based on another field. You're not. You see, here you will, whatever confusion you have. Right, they have mentioned the same thing. This event behaves like field change event. After all, the dependent value have been set. The event waits for any cascaded field change to complete before calling the user-defined function. So first your field change will trigger, and then your post-sourcing will trigger. So it will wait for all your field changing logic to be executed, and then you do post-sourcing. You have to understand the usage it is used. First thing, when you have list type values. And second thing, when you're sourcing the value based on one field, your field change can be used in any case, right? Can be used if it is a text area field or regular text field or date field or anything. But you will use post-sourcing mostly in the cases where you have list type values. I think this will help you for sure. This difference will help you for sure. Now we talked about field change. We talked about page init post-sourcing save record and validate field. Now similar to that, we have functions for line level. We have line init, we have validate line and sublist change. So field change similar to field change. We have sublist change. Similar to page init we have line init. And similar to validate field, we have validate line. Now, the only difference is these functions, when we talked about, are for the header level information. These are line level information or sublist level information. If you want to put any validation on this field, for that matter, right, you have all. These fields you will use validate line. You are trying to make sure that one field value, is changed based on another. Then you use sublist change. Okay, and then if you want to initialize some line level field values, let's say item, name or quantity or any other thing, then you use page or line init. The structure is same, syntax is same, It's just that you will have an additional value, which is your sublist ID. Like in PageInit, you don't have anything called. You have current record only, right? But along with current record, you have sublist ID also as an additional parameter. I'll open line init for one example, right? So you see here line init, you will have current record and then you have sublist, because you have to specify which sublist you're talking about. Because sales order you have all of these as sublist, right? Now we're talking about item sublist. Exactly same, no change. They behave in the same way. Now there are two additional functions left, which is validate delete and validate insert. Now validate. Delete is rarely used because in actual production instance, you hardly see a situation where you're deleting anything. So let's say, if I'm there at this line and I click on remove, or if I go ahead and delete this entire transaction. That's when your validate delete function will come into picture. If you want to validate something when you're deleting a transaction, this function is executed when an existing line is in the edit sublist is deleted. If I go here and delete this particular line, that's when this function will be triggered. And based on whatever logic you're putting. If it is valid, then it will say true, otherwise false. And similarly you have validate insert. If you insert a new line, let's say, if I come here and if I click on add row. If you add a new row and enter all the values and click add here. That's when the validate insert function will trigger, and it will check whatever logic you are putting here, and it will make sure that it is valid. Then it will return true, otherwise false. Again, if you are validating again, let's say, if I am inserting a new line, if I'm trying to validate quantity field value or any other field value, you can do it through validate line also. That's why I'm saying validate insert is very rarely used function if you want to validate the entire line instead of one field value or something value, which is very rare. You will hardly see that, but you can use validate insert in this case. So these are all the functions in client script. Now we'll take one example. And then make sure you understand using that. Now this script example. What we are doing. First thing is, this is there on sales order. Now this parameter. You can call it, keep it as context or script, context does not matter. You can call it as script, context or context. Both are same thing. So don't get confused with that. If you want to keep it as script context, you can do that. If you want to keep it as context only, that is also okay. Both of them are accepted. Now what we are doing. This is deployed on sales order. First thing in PageInit function, the problem statement is, whenever the sales order record is created, you will set the customer value as some default customer value. When I say default customer value, let's take this as the customer. This is the ID, right? So I'll use this as ID. So we are as soon as a new sales order record is. You're trying to create a new sales order record. This is called internal ID in NetSuite. And this will be auto-generated by NetSuite. It will always be unique for every single record you create in NetSuite. And if you delete transaction also, that ID also will not be reallocated to anything else. Okay, it will be unique ID for every single record. And NetSuite generates it. So you understand basic database concept, right? This is a primary key, basically. So NetSuite has this primary key, which is internal ID. And there is okay, let's not go. I'll talk about that a little later, because you will get confused. There's another primary key, but I'll talk about that later. Once we talk about it, let's take it right. Now the first ask, or first thing which we are going to do, whenever you create a new sales order, you need to set the customer as this customer, which is human, right? So that is your page init task. Okay, now the second task is.
And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.